Hey everyone, this is Chris.
And this is Lorenzo.
And welcome to Hacking Your Leadership, a Spreaker Prime podcast.
Thanks to all our Patreon members and our loyal listeners for tuning in today. Before we begin, here's a short message from a sponsor.
No role plays, just real. Chris and Lorenzo share 4 decades of combined experience to help you become a more effective leader.
We've never really, as a workforce, spent a lot of time on making sure we're developing good leaders.
We'll be able to share stories, experience, mistakes, failures, successes.
This is Hacking Your Leadership.
Welcome to Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Chris.
And I'm Lorenzo.
And Lorenzo, on this episode, we're going to be talking about the second part of the series that we started last week from the article Learning to Learn by Erika Andersen from the Harvard Business Review. Last week, if you haven't listened yet, you really should go back and check it out. It's a great episode. We talked about aspiration. On this episode, we're going to be talking about self-awareness as the second of 4 parts of what it takes to learn in the context of how we're going forward as leaders post-pandemic. So, you know, there was a lot of good stuff when we talked about aspiration. We talked about having the mindset of being able to move forward. The mindset is important when it comes to finding the tools that you need. Self-awareness is something that is, I think it's really hard for a lot of people because there's a little kind of a Schrodinger's cat element to it. Whereas if you know you don't have self-awareness, then I guess you're self-aware. So, you know, I've known a lot of leaders who lacked self-awareness. I have lacked self-awareness sometimes, and other times I'm really good at it. You know, is this something that has tripped you up sometimes during this in the post-pandemic world in terms of learning to learn, or is it something you think you excel at?
It's funny that you mentioned it. It's one of those things where it's kind of like if you feel like you're really, really self-aware, then maybe you're not as self-aware as you should be. It's just like this ongoing argument. But I'll tell you what, though, something that I've learned a lot in our Clubhouse shows, and I think it's really important for us to define the term as we break it down, because I know that that's been something that I've learned in regards to our audience and talking through people. So just to be clear, so what we are talking about is if you are highly self-aware, you can objectively evaluate yourself, manage your emotions, and align your behavior with your values and understand correctly how others perceive you. So there's a lot to unpack there, a lot. And I can tell you that as self-aware as you think you might be, the more you are, the less you are.
I don't like that definition. I like the one that lets me say I'm self-aware more, because if I put it in the context of that definition, I'm less self-aware than I thought. So can we find a better definition?
Yeah, exactly. The definition is, if I say I'm self-aware, I'm self-aware.
There you go. There you go.
No, it's, you know, we talk a lot on the show about kind of leading yourself first and looking in the mirror and being the leader that you'd want to be led by and those types of things. And I think a lot of that is in the element of creating self-awareness. And it's not about being perfect or completely aligned, but it is about holding yourself accountable and being aware of what are the things that, you know, that people perceive you as, and then who you are within your own values, you know, and are you working on some of those things? And I can share with you, you know, I was sharing with somebody the other day, you know, humor has been a major part of my life as a kid and where I grew up and the schools that I went to. And it was kind of one of those situations where you almost have 2 options. It's either, you know, fight everybody or make everybody laugh. And I chose to try to make everybody laugh as much as I could. And it helped me a lot through childhood. And it helped me a lot as I got into high school and into college. And it helped me to build relationships and that type of thing. But in the professional world, in the business world as a leader, it's something that I tended to overuse. And I think if I was always the funny person cracking the joke, lightening the room, then the question became, did I take my business serious? Did I take my job serious? Did I take my responsibility serious? And so that's just one of those things that you know, had been pointed out to me by some amazing leaders and mentors that I've had in my life. And it's something that I'm aware of. It's something that I never want to just lose. I want to be somebody who brings a lot of energy. I want to be somebody who, you know, even in times of real serious discussion, that we can kind of lighten it up a little bit and remember what we're here for and what we're doing. You know, I enjoy being that person. I think I do a good job of it, but I also know that there's a time and place for it. I also know that there's a time when humor doesn't actually help at all and can hurt in engagement or an interaction or strategy meeting or those types of things. So there is quite a bit of balance to that, but I use that as the example of truly being self-aware in one aspect of myself and my leadership. Not that I'm fully self-aware around everything, but that's just an example of understanding it, seeing it, knowing it, accepting it, and then taking actions to better myself and make sure that I am that my behaviors are aligned with my true values, and that humor isn't a value. It's just a way in which I tend to communicate and build relationships. But my real value is around leading people and having integrity and building trust and taking my job serious. Those things are a part of really who I am.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you go back in time to when you kind of made that decision to focus on humor as opposed to fighting everyone, you really missed out on an opportunity there. I think if you had gone the fighting route, no one would walk into a room today and think you don't take your job seriously. I mean, you just punch them, right? I mean, that's how you would get through it. No, I definitely think that if you have to err one way or the other, the humor way is the right way to go. Better to have somebody question whether you take your job seriously, as long as your numbers back it up. If you can say you might think I don't take things seriously based on what I'm saying to you right now or my use of humor, but look at these numbers, look at these results, and then tell me if you still think I don't take my job seriously. So I think that's okay. But you're right. The self-awareness part is absolutely important. Here's how I kind of look at it. I think I'm too close to me to be 100% self-aware. And so, like, I'll give you a great example. When you were writing your book, Vision, Clarity, Support, you asked me to read through it. I was the first person who kind of read through the whole thing. And it wasn't because you weren't confident in your writing. It was because you were too close to it to objectively judge it. It's your baby, and so you need people who will tell you what part sucks and what part needs to be rewritten and what part is great. So it's important for me to surround myself with people who I know are going to tell me when I suck, who I know are going to tell me when I'm messing up on something. And to me, that allows me to kind of get through my day knowing that I'm never going to be 100% self-aware, but I don't need to be. I need to be self-aware, but my community, my network, my people will fill in the gaps when they're lacking, because that's why I want them around, because they're not going to just tell me that I'm great all the time. They're going to tell me when I need to get better.
Yeah, but I also think a big part of it is do you actually take action? Because I think that
of course.
I'm aware of leaders out there that are self-aware. They know when maybe they've pushed too hard. They know when they've maybe said something they shouldn't have said. They know when they've maybe not had the best interaction or made the best comment or that type of thing. But to your point, like, who do they go to in times to actually get that type of feedback, and who are they leveraging to help them get better in those spaces? And many times, if you are if you're a leader and you're kind of subscribed to certain tenets of leadership, or your belief in how to lead people, or the things that you've seen in your career that you're successful at, and you're just you're stuck in those things, and that's who you are, and that's what you believe to be the successful leader type. A lot of times the leaders that are best for you to help you develop and help you to work on and bring actions to those things, and from a self-awareness standpoint, are leaders that are not like you, are leaders that see the world differently, are leaders that lead differently, are leaders that will push back and challenge you quite often in the ways in which you do things. And so it's only one part of it to actually be self-aware. It's only one part of it to actually know where it may be a blind spot for you, maybe a strength, or maybe an opportunity. But the other part of that is actually, are you doing things intentionally and proactively to refine those types of parts of your leadership, or parts of who you are as a person, whatever that might be? What are you doing to get better at that, to reduce it? And make sure that the perception of who you are as a leader and as a person is aligned with who you actually are as a leader and as a person.
Totally. So if I had given you feedback on the book, and I said, hey, you used a period here when it should have been a semicolon, and you say no, I'm going to continue with this. That's an obvious one, because there is an objectively right answer. When you're talking about leadership and how you interact with your people, there are very few objectively right answers. There's a lot of ways that people can lead people well. There are a lot of ways that you can take your people where they want or need to go, take your business where it needs to go, where you want it to go, and move yourself up the ladder if that's what you want to do. There are a lot of different ways to do that. And so there aren't, when you're talking about things where there's no objectively right way to do it, then you're talking about just other people's perspective and experience, allowing that experience to kind of lead you or influence you, as opposed to hanging on to what's really comfortable because it's what you're good at. Because by definition, maybe the thing that you've always done or the way that you've always done things isn't the right thing to do in this particular, instance. And even if you decide that what the person telling you that this is the way they do it and it's different than how you would do it, even if you decide that it's not the way forward, you need to at least be able to put yourself in the shoes of a person being led that way. Like put yourself in the shoes of your people in being led in the way that this person is suggesting, and think about how that would feel to you, because you need to be able to kind of move those chess pieces forward and think about how that plays out compared to how you would play it out. You have to be able to do that. And if you can't, if you decide that you don't have the ability to lead that way, then maybe it's the wrong way. Maybe it's right for them and wrong for you because you just don't have the skills to do it yet and you have to go a different route. That's okay too. But self-awareness has to do with, do I have the ability to objectively look at all of these different options, listen to other people, and think about the things they're telling me based on their perspective, and grant it validity simply because it's their experience, and let it influence me if I need it to. Maybe pull little things from it. It's just the ability to think through all those things without kind of staying blinders on to your way of doing things. That can be all that's needed sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think about, as a leader, you should, from a self-awareness standpoint, you should really understand like what types of people and what types of leaders, appreciate your kind of leadership and do well and are successful in your kind of leadership. And then you should also understand that there are people that can find success that may not work well under your leadership, right? And I can give you a great example of that personally. Like I've shared before, I like a little bit of controlled chaos. I think I talked about this on a Thoughtful Thursday a couple of weeks back. But I believe in allowing people the space to innovate, to push, to raise their own bar, to try different things. I like to give people the space to just do what they're going to do naturally, right, wrong, or indifferent. Because as a leader, what I really need to do is see them do what they're going to do naturally, to be able to find themes, to be able to provide them with real leadership feedback or direction or advice or whatever that might be, to help them get better. But if they're not going to do what they do naturally, it's really hard to get a read on who they are as a leader and what they stand for within their values and their behaviors. I think that there are a lot of people and leaders that really appreciate that when they kind of get over the hump of, like, if I make a mistake, I'm not going to get a whole bunch of trouble. Or if I do something, I'm just making a call here, it's okay if I learn from it and kind of move forward on it. Like, once they kind of get over that hump of like this feeling of fear of having all of this ownership of something without any real clear direction, then you can get a lot of really good exponential growth there. Where it doesn't work for people or leaders are those that need very clear structure, and they need a very clear, this is how I want you to do it. And whether they had that previously, whether that's how they like to lead people, that can be a difficult element. It's something that I have to make in the adjustment as the leader in real time, to understand that my style of leadership is going to be difficult for them, because I'm more like to say, here's what we're looking to achieve. Do you understand it? Do I understand it? Do you have any questions? Do you know why? Okay, what do you need from me? What are we looking to achieve here? Go ahead and do your thing. Let me know how that goes. If I just do that with somebody who is used to being told exactly what to do, when it needs to be done, and they're being shown how to do it, that can be really difficult for them. And I don't want them to have that difficulty. I don't want them to fail as a result of my personal preferred leadership style. So I have to be aware of that. I have to be able to pick that up as a leader, and I have to be able to make my adjustment and spend more time with them up front explaining how I lead. And that's something that I've had to learn to do over time. Is, it's easy for me, like, hey, welcome to the team. We want to do great work here. Let me be clear. We want to do the best that we can possibly do and everything that we're responsible for. But then I've also learned over time to explain to them how I lead and how I've done it, and what they might see out of me, and to say, if that doesn't work for you, that's okay. Let me know. If you need more, let me know. If you need more clarity, let me know. If you need more time with me, let me know. I will check in with you a little bit more often as we begin, just to make sure that we're good. But you have to be aware of that, because there are plenty of people and leaders that might say, like, hey, that doesn't work for me. I need something different. And it's my responsibility to either make the adjustment or find leaders in my business that can provide that for them to help them be as successful as possible.
Yeah, I really like this topic a lot. I think back to the episode we had just like 2 weeks ago, I think, where we were talking about bias in the hiring process. You know, a lack of self-awareness, by definition, is bias. You're biased towards yourself, whatever that is. So if you lack self-awareness, and so when you talk about putting your people, that controlled chaos where you put your people or you allow your people to do what they naturally do, that's so imperative to be able to give them feedback, because you can't root your feedback in hypotheticals. You can't say, well, now you're more likely to do this and this and this, so we're going to go this route instead. The natural inclination from somebody you're saying that to, even if it's a person who you have a really strong relationship with, is going to be, I don't do that. I don't do that, especially if it's framed negatively or less than positively. But if instead you say, hey, yesterday when this was happening, this is what you did. The day before that, when this was happening, this is what you did. So we're going to go this route. They can't say, well, I didn't do that. You know, it's actually what they did. And so instead of telling people, you know, what you think they're inclined to do, rooting it in what they actually do is a way to kind of get them over that hurdle where the knee-jerk can't be to get defensive. The knee-jerk can't be to try to say, you know, I'm better at this than what you think I am. Because you're not making a judgment on whether or not what they're doing is good or bad. You're just saying, this is what I saw you do. These are your actual actions, so we're going to go this route. And you're basically saying the route we're going this route because I know that this is what your tendency is to do, and that's okay. So we're going to go this way. Now, if you think this should be different because you're going to go about it differently, or this is something you want to change about yourself, then we can talk about that. But now you're approaching the conversation with somebody who believes that it's something they need to change about themselves, as opposed to just getting defensive. And I know that that's something that has been used on me effectively, where leaders have done that to me and said, hey, just now when you did this, and my knee jerk was to be like, I feel myself saying, I didn't do, and in the mid sentence, I'm like, oh yeah, I did do that. Yeah, it just happened. There's no point in saying it didn't happen because it just happened and they saw it and I did it. And so it removes this kind of knee-jerk to be biased towards ourselves from a standpoint of our own psychological safety that we place ourselves into, and allows us to move forward from a standpoint of, hey, I'm not being judged here. This is just the way life is, so let's figure out how to move forward.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to this episode's 1-minute hack. But first, a word from a sponsor.
The 1-minute hack.
All right, for this episode's 1-minute hack, here's what I want you to do. Get out your pen and paper, and I want you to write down the 5 names of the people you spend most of your time with. This could be professionally, personally, anywhere in your life. Think about your 24-hour day, the 5 people who get most of those hours of your day on a weekly or monthly basis. And I want you to look at those people and think about, do each of those people challenge you to get better, or do they allow you to be exactly who you are? We talk about acceptance, right? You want people who accept you for who you are? Yes, as long as who they're accepting you for is not serving you well. So those 5 people are going to be the people who have the potential to help you get better, to help you be more self-aware. If they're doing that, great. If they're pushing back on you when you do things wrong, great. If they're not, you need to surround yourself with different people. You need to pick people in your life who will challenge you to get better in a way that says, hey, I accept you for who you are, but by the way, this needs to change also.
Absolutely. I think it's a great 1-minute hack, and I think that it's so important around who we surround ourselves with. And sometimes the reality is this. Sometimes we don't get to choose that. It's just a result of life, where you live and where you spend your time. But it is so important that those around you are helping you to get better, especially if you're thinking about this from a leadership context. If you owe it to your people to help them get better, then you should be the first priority in your own life of getting better yourself, and those people around you will help you do that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the one of the biggest laments of my leadership career is in the number of people who I saw who had the ability to do so much more than what they were doing, but who they surrounded themselves with were people who allowed them to just be complacent, to just be mediocre, to just do exactly what they were doing because it's easier. And I try to get through to some of those people, and sometimes you can, but sometimes you can't, because relationships are strong, friendships are strong, and it's a tough thing for me to see a person not doing the things that I know they're capable of, but B, that they say they want to do. They articulate that they want to do, and they're not doing them because of who they're surrounding themselves with. It's very, very important. Know who you surround yourself with.
Absolutely. And with that, it brings us to the end of this episode. This is Hacking Your Leadership. I'm Lorenzo.
And I'm Chris.
And we'll talk to you all next time.